Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're going to look at a pretty fascinating paradox. Just imagine a civilization creating its absolutely most breathtaking, flawless art at the exact moment its political foundation is literally crumbling to dust. We're looking at the golden twilight of the Chola Empire, and we'll be exploring both its incredibly dramatic fall and its deeply enduring legacy.
You know, they say every imperial sun eventually sets, but the way this particular one set, it is truly cinematic. Picture it, you've got master sculptors in these dark, intensely heated workshops pouring glowing, molten bronze into stone molds. You can almost hear the rhythmic hammering echoing out into the night. They're busy creating absolute, timeless perfection, right on the very brink of their empire's death. Okay, let's dive into this. They were using lost wax bronze casting. This was a 12th century technique that these late Chola artisans totally perfected. They used it to create these intricate, flawless forms, the most famous being the Nataraja, which is Shiva as the cosmic dancer. And what's absolutely incredible is that you can walk into modern museums across the world today and see these exact masterpieces sitting right there behind the glass. But as bright and beautiful as this artistic renaissance was, there's actually a much darker truth hiding right behind it.
Because while those artisans were locked in their workshops perfecting that bronze casting, the geopolitical sands of South India were shifting incredibly fast right beneath their feet. The empire was facing centuries of continuous, exhausting war. Their borders were drastically overextended, and regional rivals were rising up all around them. So the structural foundations of the legendary Chola Tiger banner were quietly cracking, even as their artists were doing their absolute finest work.
Which brings us to Section 1, Hubris and Retribution, the Pandyan blood feud.
To really understand how an empire this massive actually collapses, we have to trace a 300-year rivalry that slowly, methodically morphed into a terrifying, generational thirst for revenge. For 300 years, the Cholas absolutely dominated their southern neighbors, the Pandyas. We're talking burning capitals and forcing kings into exile. Then, in the late 12th century, King Kulotunga Chola III scores what would ultimately be the empire's last major victories by sacking the Pandyan capital of Madurai. But here's the thing, he took it way too far. This wasn't just a standard military victory, it was an act of specific, devastating arrogance. He actually destroyed their sacred coronation halls and looted their royal treasures. And that deep, bitter humiliation planted the seeds for the early 13th century when King Maravarman Sundara Pandyan I launched a massive, devastating counter-invasion.
The sheer shock of this moment in history really cannot be overstated. The heartland breached, Thanjavur captured, an emperor forced to bow. This Pandyan counter-invasion force pushed aggressively straight north right into the Kaveri Delta. They forced the Chola emperor to literally bow down in the very city his own ancestors had built. It was a staggering, foundational blow to the empire's psyche.
And that leads us to Section 2, the lowest ebb, the imprisoned emperor.
You know, when the center can't hold, things fall apart incredibly quickly. As the central authority of the Chola Empire cracked, local feudal warlords, guys who were strictly supposed to be loyal subjects, jumped at the opportunity to turn on their weakened masters. And this led to an unprecedented level of humiliation. On one side, we've got the emperor himself, Rajaraja III, stripped of his imperial crown and locked in a stone cell inside the fortress of Sendamangalam by his own rebellious vassal chieftain, a guy named Kaparunjiga. On the other side, just to save their imprisoned king, the Chola state was forced to literally grovel and beg their longtime northern rivals, the Hoysals of Karnataka, to invade Tamilakam and rescue him. Now, what's really interesting about this is the staggering, tragic irony of how far they had fallen. In the past, this was a feared maritime superpower, a dynasty that practically owned the seas. But in the present, they are effectively a puppet state, relying entirely on foreign troops just to survive the betrayal of their own local lords.
And that all brings us to this pivotal year, 1279 CE. This is the era of the final emperor, Rajendra Chola III, and he really did make a valiant, truly desperate last stand to rally his armies and rebuild the shattered state. But he was up against an absolute, unstoppable genius of a conqueror, Jatavarman Sundara Pandyan I. The tide of history had turned, and quite frankly, it just could not be stopped. The Tiger banner falls. Rajendra III vanishes. 400 years of empire ends. Just feel the cinematic weight of that moment.
At the Great Walls of Gangakondar Cholapuram, the legendary golden tiger flag is finally pulled down, falling right into the dust, completely replaced by the twin fish banner of the Pandya dynasty. The mighty Chola lands, all their massive cities, and their bustling ports are completely absorbed into the Second Pandya Empire.
So that leaves us with a pretty massive question, right? It's one that every great civilization eventually has to face. What actually survives when an empire turns to dust? We've just walked through the gritty, harsh reality of their political collapse. But what about the footprint they left behind?
Let's look at Section 3, an enduring legacy, the immortal footprint.
Because while empires inevitably fall, and banners fade, and kings turn to dust in the pages of history, a true legacy that lives forever. And the Cholas left behind something way bigger than just war stories. First, they gave us these towering granite temples, like the magnificent Brihadeshwara Temple, which still stands tall under the night sky today. Second, there's those timeless lost wax bronzes that we talked about earlier, still gracing world museums. Third, they built an incredible system of democratic village councils. And fourth, they had a pioneering maritime vision that permanently connected India to the rest of Asia. And what you really should take away from all this is how relevant it still is to our modern world. To this day, ancient Chola irrigation canals are actively watering green fields in Tamil Nadu. And those maritime trade routes they originally envisioned, they are still being used by massive cargo ships navigating the Bay of Bengal right now. I want to read this specific quote to you, because I think it perfectly captures the profound scale of their historical journey. They began as a small feudatory clan on the banks of the Kaveri River and ended as the kings of the southern seas. It is an absolutely incredible, breathtaking trajectory for any human civilization, stretching across 4 solid centuries of rule. So the final crucial point I want to leave you with today is this. If an empire's political victories are completely erased, but its art, its ideas, and its massive structures live on forever, is a civilization actually defined by its borders or by what it builds? It's definitely something to think about the next time you look at a piece of ancient history. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll see you next time.